Good morning once again. We're going to start with the session for today. In the interest of time, we are going to go briefly through a previous presentation that Schneider Electric did a couple of weeks ago to get everybody up to speed on the bones of the monitoring solution from Schneider Solar. This presentation will be sent to all the attendees together with some additional information about the platform. My name is Luis, and I'm going to be walking you today through the various options of monitoring that Schneider Solar has for their products. So, as you might know by now, Schneider is a very large multinational company which has funded and created a separate division to deal with renewable energy, which is called Schneider Solar. It has its own management, CEO, webpage, R&D, production plants, distribution networks, etc., etc. Our company, Easy Power, is one of the distributors for Southern Africa, which promotes, distributes, and supports Schneider Solar products. Okay, so the equipment from Schneider in general is designed to be compatible with a single monitoring interface, which is called mobile inside, connects inside, or inside mobile, depending on which platform you are using. And it's a cloud-based system. So it's a system which essentially has data gathering on a server, which is located in Schneider offices in Canada, and which provides services to all the various applications that allows you to actually pull data and display data from your systems. All the products from the family of solar products of Schneider are compatible with this monitoring. That goes both for battery inverters, as the SWs, XWs, XW Pluses, and XW Pros now. That goes for all the different sizes of solar chargers available on the market, 60, 80, and 100 amps. All the accessories, as the control panels, automatic generator starters, and all the lineup of string inverters, grid-tied inverters, as the CL60, CL66, CL36. All of them can connect into the cloud platform of Schneider and can be monitored and controlled remotely. So as a reminder, there is a number of proprietary communication methods that the equipment uses to talk within each other and to talk back into the monitoring equipment. In this case, all the Connex suite of equipment of Schneider utilizes a proprietary communication network called SAMBUS, which is a modified type of Modbus. This SAMBUS can deliver information directly to any of the monitoring gateways that Schneider has. You can see on the bottom of the slide a picture of a legacy product, which is the COMBOX, and the new product, which is the Connex Gateway. We will see in a lot more detail what are the capabilities of the Connex Gateway as we do the demonstration of the remote monitoring and remote control. It is important to notice that while some devices will talk to each other on SAMBUS, some other devices, as the grid-tied inverters, string inverters, will talk to the gateway on RS485 or Modbus TCP/IP. Okay, so without any further delay, so let's talk directly into what is required for doing remote monitoring with the Schneider products. The Schneider products as such are not enabled for external communication. They do require a communication gateway, which is what you can see there on your screen. There is soon to be a lighter version of this gateway product for home use, still not being rolled out for the international market. Today, what we have here in South Africa is what you see on the screen, which is the Connex Gateway. The Connex Gateway is designed in such a way that it can communicate simultaneously to a number of peripherals and a number of SAMBUS communication networks. So we have the capability to monitor in real time two completely separate SAMBUS networks. Every SAMBUS network can carry up to 24 devices. So that makes to a very large amount of devices on a Connex system. In addition, it has an auxiliary port, which you can see on the bottom right of the device, which allows you RS-485 communication and CAN communication. So it comes with 2 CAN ports and 2 RS-485 ports, which allows a very large amount of devices monitored at the same time. So the gateway, as per its name, the gateway's function is to pull the data from all these devices and to deliver that to the cloud server on the Schneider offices, which actually powers up the ConnectInsight website, which we will see a little bit later. The gateway has a number of other interesting functions. It not only allows us to monitor, it allows us to fully program the equipment, to change all the parameters and settings, to update the firmware or software of the equipment, and to do battery management systems control through a proprietary battery management system communication protocol, which Schneider has made available to all the battery suppliers. This is all done through the supplementary ports, CAN and RS-485, which can be seen there on that multi-plug there, that 24-pin multi-plug connector. So the gateway is a quantum leap of performance compared to the COMBOX. COMBOX, it's a very old product, it's slow, very little memory, and very little capabilities, interface not very friendly compared to the gateway. So the gateway is superseding, for most applications, the COMBOX. So again, we can see here a better picture of the gateway. So the gateway can be mounted both in a horizontal and vertical positions. In other words, it can be mounted on a DIN rail, sequential to all the circuit breakers, or it can be mounted on a wall. You can see as well from the picture there is an Ethernet connection, and there is 2 antennas for Wi-Fi. The reason is that the gateway has an access point which allows wireless communication between a laptop and the gateway for setup, commissioning, and programming. And then it has a second Wi-Fi which allows the gateway to connect to external internet via wireless. So you have 2 Wi-Fis in one, and you have a wired port via the Ethernet again, which you can see there. Okay, so diving in a little bit more into the details of the gateway. So again, we have these dual Wi-Fi channels. We have very good set of LED lights that gives a status into the current operation and mode of the gateway. The gateway can be switched on and off from the buttons on the side. It can be reset. There is a number of different levels of reset for resetting the gateway. And it can be physically upgraded via the USB port. This is a very useful function for people which will want to upgrade the software in the gateway just by physically using a USB thumb drive, which will automatically load the latest software at the gateway. Then you will see a section which is labeled as the dual Modbus port and other IOs. Well, that dual Modbus port is essentially your port 1 and 2, which can be CAN 1 or CAN 2 or RS-485 1 or 2. This is a very capable interface because you can add to the system meters. A number of Schneider meters have been paired up to the gateway, so you can have metering around your system, both grid metering and load metering. You can as well communicate to RS-485 devices as string inverters if you have an AC coupled system. And you will communicate with your batteries depending on your battery supplier using this plug as well with your RS-485 or CAN connection, depending on what your battery manufacturer has. You can see as well on the left side 4 ports. Those are in and out ports for 2 different SAN-bus channels. And then we have the Ethernet plug, and we have an AC power source. Interesting as well, the gateway as well has its own remote power supply. So the gateway can be powered by the SAN-bus network, which is the 4 plugs that we see on the left. Those 4 plugs as well carry power. So as long as we have enough devices on the SAN-bus network able to produce sufficient power to keep the gateway powered up, the AC power source is not required. So the gateway consumes about 800 milliamps approximately. If required, the gateway can be powered as well directly with a DC input at 24 volts, or a 6 to 24 volts input on this dual Modbus port plug. So there is a negative and positive terminal there where you can have DC power supply to supply power to the gateway. So a very versatile device, able to do many, many different functions. So we can see here the back of the gateway. When you get your gateway out of the packaging, you will see that there is a label that actually has the Wi-Fi password of the unit. That Wi-Fi password is referred to the access point that the unit broadcasts for a point-to-point connection of your laptop. So you can connect to the interface and you can log in into the web server inside of the unit and do all the programming of the unit, right? So that password comes set up from the factory. So again, more details into this digital input port that you can see here. A lot of people get very excited when they see the possibilities. And the plan is to enable every single one of those points, of those 51 points or connections that you see on that digital inputs plug. At the moment, the only ones that have been enabled are only the communication options. In further releases of the firmware, the relay options will be actually enabled. And this will be very handy for people that want to have conditional operation of the onboard relays for a number of things, sending messages or operating peripherals or a number of different things. So here we can see a good example of a gateway which is monitoring a number of different things, right? So you can see that we have, for what it could be 2 separate plants or 1 plant of string inverters. You can see on the RS485 A and B, we have a number of inverters connected on the AC chain, right? So they are communicating on Modbus via RS485 to the gateway. Then we have a number of battery inverters connected on SAMBUS 1, and then we have a number of solar chargers connected on SAMBUS 2. So this allows us to actually monitor a significantly large renewable energy system, right? Because we're producing energy via the string inverters, and we have our battery inverters and DC chargers connected too. You can see as well that there is a line connected to the BMS on the CAN port, so we are communicating in real time the inverters to the battery and vice versa. Okay, so I'm not going to go into very deep detail with regards to the communication of batteries and the gateway and the inverters, because it's a separate topic, and a different webinar will be scheduled for that, completely free for our customers. So all this information is pulled by the gateway and is sent via the internet into the InsightCloud, which you can see on the top right, which is a completely free proprietary website from Schneider Solar, which allows you to do many, many things, which we'll see in a couple of minutes' time. So again, the gateway has connectivity via Wi-Fi or a physical Ethernet cable, which would be your local area network or LAN. It can work on a fixed IP mode, or it can work on a DHCP mode, so you can set the gateway with a physical address, so you can pull the gateway directly. Both. And this is important for all the people in the call which is into advanced communication with these devices. Every single device of the family that we have discussed, the gateways, the inverters, both string inverters and battery inverters, and every other device has a Modbus communication protocol. And the gateway is essentially a Modbus master. So you're able to pull via the TCP IP port, the Ethernet port of the gateway unit, you're able to pull every single device on any one of the various communication networks inside of the gateway, which makes it very interesting for someone which wants to actually connect this to a DCS, for example. So you have a commercial system which is supplying a facility that has a control display center, which is able to go and pull and obtain information from the Modbus master, in this case the gateway, and display it onto your own interface, right, on your factory or your industrial plant, etc., etc. So all that information on those protocols is freely available at the Schneider Solar website, and there is very detailed information on each of the manuals on Modbus protocols for developers, right? Developers as people that develop these polling and communication applications. All right, so now the gateway can work simultaneously as an access point an Ethernet connection to the internet, or connect via Wi-Fi to the internet and connect a computer to the access point. So this is the possibilities of communication with the gateway. It has a limited number of clients connected into the TCP/IP ports inside of the unit. So what do you get? What do you obtain on the local interface, which is the interface that resides, that lives inside of your gateway? It's a very lively and interesting power flow display, which shows all the devices which are connected into the network. And it shows the different flows of energy going in between all the different devices. You get recording and accrual of energy inside of the unit, which is what you can read there as powerful local monitoring. And then you get very detailed device status for every single one of the devices which is connected to the gateway. So I'm going to make a point there to mention that all the Connex devices, the Connex devices are your inverters, your solar chargers, your control panels, your generator starters, can not only display a status, but can be programmed, and their variables and parameters can be adjusted and changed using the gateway. Devices as the string inverters can only display status and information. It cannot yet be programmed. It is on the map of development of the unit. At some point, it will be possible to do some type of programming on RS-485 for those devices, for the string inverters and so forth and so on. So the Connect Gateway introduces a very intuitive interface, which is a very step-by-step, tab-by-tab configuration setup that allows installers which are familiarized with the product, a very quick and efficient configuration of the equipment, which serves as a reminder that we will be running an installer day next week, Friday, the 20th of November, for all parties interested. This is exclusive only for experienced solar installers. So we'll be putting up some equipment here on the training center and then programming it using a gateway and a config tool. So going back to the presentation, it does simplify quite a bit, having a one-screen view of what the settings are in your unit, because this unit actually has a number of settings that needs to be configured. They're very powerful, but they can be very complex as well. So very important part of the function or mission of the gateway is the event tracking. And the event tracking is quite helpful to actually troubleshoot misbehaving systems. So every single failure or warning that the system actually registered on any of the devices that has been connected to the gateway will be tracked and stored inside of the gateway, which is excellent. If you have a very large system, let's say you have 9 inverters and you want to do an upgrade of firmware, you can actually do now a bulk upgrade. So you will select upgrade them all, and the gateway will run one by one, upgrading the software until it's done with all the devices on the network. So that saves a little bit of time as well. It makes it easier to upgrade larger systems. And you have a number of statistics that you can actually get from every one of your devices, from voltages, from currents, from various voltages on devices like your solar chargers, for example, etc., etc. Now you can graphically see every one of those variables, as you can see there on the top image there. For the people that is worried about cyber security, and that's a very real threat today, the gateway has a number of fail-safe security programs inside which prevents unauthorized access, and the unit has been restricted to only 2 types of access. You have an admin access, which actually can do all sorts of programming inside of the unit. These typically should be given to a solar installer and or to distributors. And then you have a user access that can be set up by the original solar installer, and the user access gives you access to see the status of all the devices, to see all the production information, and to broadcast information still into the cloud for the usage of the various apps that Schneider has made available for remote monitoring, but do not allow to make changes in the system, right? which I think with complicated equipment is sometimes a plus for inexperienced end users. So you have again 2 accounts that can be set up to access this. So going back into the dashboard, again, very intuitive. You can go in from left to right to keep a logical order of movement here. You have a tab which is all about energy. So you have your power flow, which is that image you can see there on the screen. Then you have a battery summary which allows you to see a graph of time versus current or time versus voltage. So you can see both the charging and discharging cycles in your battery and assist you in the troubleshooting of battery issues. You have a battery comparison. If you have multiple battery systems connected in the gateway, remember you can have 2 separate, completely separate solar systems connected to a gateway, supplying different loads with different users. So you could do comparisons. You can have your energy accrual figures on the energy tab, and you can have then a very nice interface, which we'll see now, to actually plot the different energy production and consumption of the system. Interesting as well, as you can see there, if you have multiple battery banks, you can get to see a state of charge and voltage on every one of them if the battery banks are physically connected to a gateway via CAN or RS-485. You can see events and warnings. That's that little orange circle that you can see there. And then you can see all the other AC coupled devices. You can see there is some string inverter connected in parallel to the output of the inverter and in parallel to the grid. So all of these can be seen real time. Very useful as well for troubleshooting. So here we have a snapshot of the battery summary. So the battery summary allows you actually to zoom in and to see a very high level of detail. You can produce PDFs, you can produce Excel dumps as a CSV file, and you can quickly toggle in between different dates, right? So you can see the performance of your battery within a period of time. We can have a choice of variables, so you can either see voltage, current, or both for each of your battery banks connected into the gateway. In the energy tab, we have a 30,000 feet view of your energy consumption as energy is produced and as energy is consumed. So both per day, per week, per month, per year, depends on how long the unit has been running and accruing data. Very important, every time that the unit is upgraded, and there is an upgrade of firmware, this data is reset. So important to keep in mind that if you're going to upgrade this, you might want to save some of this data. And here we have a more interactive view in an hour-by-hour setup, or to be able to see all the different energy producers and energy consumers in your system, even by hour, by day, by month, or by year. Again, this gives you more granularity of the data, and you can then produce, again, either a PDF or an image, or you can actually produce an Excel file, a CSV file for more detailed analysis. Now, let's just quickly see how nice is the graphical interface to move in between devices. For the older installers in the call, you will remember the config tool, not really friendly on this device, on this aspect. Here we can have a physical representation of each device. So it's quite simple to know what is what. And at a glance, we can as well see if there is a device that actually has a warning. You can see a battery monitor that has a warning, right? And we can toggle between these little images, which will be the icons option, or we can just simply see a list of all the devices. Again, this is very helpful when you have a very large system. Remember, we could end up with tens of devices on this gateway connected. So again, we have a devices tab. The devices tab that you see on the top allows you to see the devices by category. So if we have a system with 40 or 50 devices, we can very easily get lost trying to find a specific device. So to make it an easy and intuitive function of finding your device, we have divided these on various categories. As inverter chargers, other devices, typically AGSs, SCPs, and all your meters in the system, right? So here is an example of the detail that you can see in this case. This is a small 4048 inverter. So this is your status page, right? And it's a one page that gives you very much all the variables on your equipment. voltages in, voltages out, frequencies, DC power, etc., etc. And more importantly, the mode that the inverter is working at in this case. Right? If you hit the next tab on that top line, you move to performance, and then on performance again, you get a better view of the most important parameters in the unit, which are all related to inputs and outputs, and you're able to actually plot them, which I think is quite interesting, right? So in this case, you can actually, this is a solar charger, and you can actually go plot DC energy in, DC energy out to see efficiencies, etc., etc. The events page, as we mentioned before, just records all the events. We don't have any slide on that one. And then we go to the configuration. The configuration is able to allow you to configure absolutely every single variable on the equipment, as much as you can do from the front control panel or SCP, but in a more intuitive way, because it works with these sliders, and you can actually configure the unit on a fraction of a time that what it will take to configure the unit via the SCP. You can as well reboot and reset your unit. These units are highly complex, and sometimes the microprocessor has to be rebooted. And as well, you can set your units to operating in standby, all from this configuration tab. Then we have a very useful tab, which is what we call, for people not very advanced on software loading, it's a bootloader for firmware, which means that it is able to actually load this firmware and reset the equipment at the very same time. So it's loading the operating system of the device plus the firmware at the very same time, which reduces quite a lot the problem during firmware updates, right? Typically, the problem during firmware updates is rogue pieces of software jam inside of operating system of equipment. So the events are all linked again to the catalog, the menu of events of each device. So you're not going to have more or less event types than what you already had previously with your system and what the catalog and the manual tells you you can have. But it's very good for troubleshooting because it allows you to know what event happened when, right? And it's good to actually know what is causing the different events and or failures. And this historic do not get overwritten or deleted from the gateway unless you do a factory reset. So unless you do that, this record will stay there for a very, very long time. You can as well download this record event as a CSV file, so it can be easily mailed to somebody. So with regards to the setup of the unit, again, the unit has a setup tab where you can actually configure the unit to communicate to the outside world and to communicate with the rest of the devices. Okay, so you see that's setup tab that you see there at the top. Basic configuration is date and time zone. That's quite important. Your gateway won't be able to communicate to the cloud if the time setup is incorrect. So that is one to always keep in mind. Our time zone here is GMT +2, and the date and time needs to be set as per your laptop date and time. Okay. A very good point is after you have set up a gateway, you can actually save the settings of the gateway into a file, which can be used to actually reset the gateway by uploading those settings again. There is an option as well. That's where you have that import and export settings tab. Again, inside of the network tab, we have the tab related to the cloud. The cloud can be enabled and disabled. That's a cloud communication. Some customers will be worried about cybersecurity and won't desire to have the gateway to communicate to an external server. In that case, the cloud communication can be disabled without hampering the recording functions and programming functions and all the local performance that the gateway can still deliver within the local network of the customer. You can see as well that there is, and it's not highlighted, but there is a field that says allow remote firmware upgrade. This is a new function that is being developed, so you can actually do software upgrades on the equipment remotely. At this time, it's only limited to updating the gateway itself, but it's soon to be released to update the individual devices, softwares remotely. Okay. So you have a network configuration tab where you can again configure the Ethernet connection or just connect the gateway to any external Wi-Fi for external communication. You have as well a Modbus TCP tab, again, cybersecurity related. If you will desire to connect to your gateway, using the gateway as a master, a Modbus master, so you can pull the gateway from a different software that you have designed. You have an option to actually enable the external communication, right? So you have it right there inside of the network tab that the Modbus TCP setting needs to be enable the Modbus TCP, right? And you have a section where you can actually create and change the different passwords for the different users. It's very important that you create a password that do comply with those little notes that you see there, 6 to 12 characters, at least one capital letter, at least one number, because the cybersecurity requirements of the cloud will not allow you to connect and to see your data if the password do not comply with those requirements, both for the admin account and for the user account. And finally, we have the device detection tab. So all the devices connected into the sandbox network are detected automatically. As the gateway boots up, it just goes through the network and just detects everybody and just shows them very nicely on the display. All the RS-485 devices, your string inverters and your meters at this point, will require to be detected, right? So once they have been detected once, every time that the gateway powers up, it will remember the device ID or the slave ID of the device on the RS-485 and will reapply it automatically, right? So this is a manual process that needs to be done at least once when you connect your RS-485 devices. It's still Modbus, but it's not Modbus TCP, it's Modbus RTU, the communication happening through RS-485. The BMSs on your batteries, by the way, will be as well RS-485 devices, which has to be detected, right? So typically, if we have a system that is AC coupled and has a battery, and the battery has to communicate to the gateway, we will be using both the RS-485 1 and RS-485 2. We'll be connecting our battery master controller or master battery to the RS-485 2, for example, and we'll be connecting our DC chain of string inverters to RS-485 1. And then all this precious hardware on your side is broadcasting information into the backbone of the monitoring system, which is the InsightCloud, okay? So the InsightCloud is a bidirectional system. This is very different to what some competition actually does. So it is able to receive data from the site, and it is able to send commands into the site, if you have, of course, an account that actually allows you to have those privileges. I will be diving into a lot more details, so I'm not going to be spending a lot of time here because we're going to be seeing a real-life demonstration of this. Okay, but in a nutshell, your gateway collects the data, sends it to the server. The server allows you access via web page, which is your connecting site, and the server serves information to your mobile app in your mobile phone. Okay, so that is in a nutshell how this works. Okay, so let's just go and have a look at directly at the platform, so you can get to see directly how this platform actually operates. Okay, so what you have there in front of you is the Connect Inside webpage, which is being rebranded as the InsightCloud. I think it's a better name, it's a lot more clear into what it is. This is a repository of all your data, which is completely safe and secure by the cybersecurity offered by Schneider. The usage of the website is completely free. It's not linked to any purchase. The way to access the website is creating your account, which you create by signing up. So you can fill all this information and sign up to create a new account. You will receive a notification email into which you will validate that email account, and you will have then automatic access to your InsightCloud account. So how do you see data inside of the InsightCloud when the system is commissioned? Very sorry about that. I don't know what happened there with the network. So let's just continue here sharing our screen. Okay, so once you have created your InsightCloud account, the person that is creating the site physically on the system needs to add that email account to the list of users on that site. So we'll see how that is done. Okay, so I'm going to quickly just log in into my account, and we will see some of the systems that we actually have physically connected to my account. Okay, you can see here that actually this is a good one. One of the sites that actually I'm connected to is telling me that there is a new firmware upgrade available for this site. Okay, so it's telling me if I want to upgrade. Well, I'm not going to upgrade now, but I'm going to show you how that is done. Okay, so let's just go and have a look at one site. So let's just dive into this site. So this power flow is not a real-time update. In the roadmap, there is a plan to make these updates in a couple seconds type of update. At the moment, it's a slow update. It's only 5 to 10 minutes. That's why you have your mobile app on your mobile phone to get a much quicker update of your system. So this is more for monitoring and configuration than anything else, but you can get to see what the system is doing at the moment. In this system, you can see we're charging the batteries, we are supplying some surplus power to the loads, very minimal amount is coming from the grid. We can as well obtain from an energy gauge, we can see the production figures for the day. So you can see that it's split in between energy consumed and energy produced, right? So we can see the figures for the day of the system. The day cutoff is midnight. So this system has in operation from the early hours of the morning and a few hours of good sun production today. It's produced 7 kilowatt hours. We can see here if the system has any alarms and or any faults, and this one doesn't have any of those. Then we can have a different sets of graphs and comparisons, so we can actually see the different sources of energy, right? So all of these different graphs, depending on what you like or don't like from your system, can be customized. You will see that there is a small icon that says add to my dashboard. You can have your preferred graphs configured to your preferences to all show together on one page, and that page is your dashboard. So essentially you will go around, you will customize every one of those displays, and you will add them to your dashboard, so you can go and see it on your dashboard, as you can see here on the top left, right, on your system. The site energy comparison is actually quite a good one, because it allows us to actually see where the energy actually has come from. In this case, we can change the date as well. We can go back in time, right? So let's go back to last weekend, which was quite a good sunny weekend. So you can see there that we had great production. We charged our batteries. We ran most of the night from our batteries, etc., etc. If we have multiple devices producing, we can as well do analysis. This system has 2 solar chargers, so we can see which one produces more, which one produces less. The inverters, we can see how much they're shedding load as well. You can see it to there. Again, if this is my preferred view, I'm monitoring my charge controllers, I can add that to my dashboard. I can make my dashboard as simple or complex as I might desire. Okay, so again, on the very same system, we have an events page. We don't have any active events, but we can see here all the instances of power failures that this system has actually experienced. So you can see AC input under voltage. So these are power failures, and we can see here the opposite, AC input over voltage. So the South African grid is quite unstable, especially when it is under strain. So it is not uncommon to see the system going into an island configuration because of too low or too high voltage, even if the grid is available. But all these events and failures that you normally have in your local gateway, in your physical location, will be sent into the cloud. So distributors like us and the installer themselves and Schneider itself can have a look at them and advise, right? And I think what everybody has been looking forward to see is a configuration, okay? Which it's quite a handy function in the many functions of what it can be done, right, with the gateway. So you can see here that we have access to all the devices, right? So this system has 2 inverters and 2 chargers. So for example, let's go and have a look at the master inverter. Keep in mind this data is going all around the world and back into your desktop, so it takes a couple seconds in downloading all the information from the cloud and back into your computer. Okay, so while this actually downloads, what you see here, what you're able to change will depend on what privileges you have on the account users of this system, okay? Which we'll see here on the user right tab, right at the top left. So if you have been set as a basic end user, you won't get to see anything. If you've been set as a site administrator, you get to see everything. So I'm a site administrator here. So I can set the system to standby. I can reboot the inverter if I wanted to. I can disable or enable the charger. I can change all the inverter settings, as you can see there. We can change all the charger settings, as you can see here, right? Every single one of them can be changed remotely. We're not going to do that because that could potentially switch off the system. We can change some of the energy priorities or the grid priorities of the system. The AC1 priority cannot be changed while the system is running. So this is one of the few things that it had to be remotely changed. The system will have to be set on standby before. We're not going to dive into all the functions that the equipment can do, just giving you some flavor about the level of detail of the parameters that you can change, right? Grid support can be totally adjusted from the system. The GBS mode can be activated. The generator support mode can be activated. Let's play with this auxiliary relay, which is not connected to anything. So for argument's sake, let's say we want to enable this remotely. So we'll apply the changes. It will ask us for our local password on the gateway. Again, this will be the account and password which is used locally to log in into that gateway box. Okay. So the cloud platform will go and communicate, do a handshake with the gateway on site, and if it verifies the password, it will give you this license agreement, and then you say yes, please apply the changes. So if the changes are successful, you see this turning green. So we have effectively enabled the auxiliary output on this charger, which is a dry contact. Okay, so just for the sake of demonstrating something remotely, right? So absolutely everything can be changed except the parameters. Again, the associations cannot be changed when the system is running. So, but most other parameters can most definitely be changed, as you can see there, right? These are the BMS parameters. If you have a battery which is communicating to the gateway, your device ID parameters. So you go there, every single parameter on this device can be adjusted and changed, including the Modbus, which is quite a nice one if you're troubleshooting communication issues. So quite unique in the market. As far as I know, there is no other platform that allows you this level of control and detail at the moment. So now, again, not everybody can have these very powerful privileges because changing some of these parameters can cause physical damages on the equipment. So it's only for trained personnel. So you got different users here. So we got the master user and we got one other user here, but we could add an additional user. Basic end user, technical end user, solar installer, and the top, which is site administrator. So the end user which owns the system, the customer will get a basic end user. The solar installer, well, if it is a well-trained installer that understands the parameter, can set solar installer and so forth. So it's quite straightforward to do that. Once the email of the person has been input here, that email needs to match the InsightCloud. This website that I'm showing you needs to match the email address that was used to create that account, right? That person will receive an email saying, you have been added to such and such system with such and such privileges. Thank you. You can now see the information. Again, email notifications. We can see who receives what on this system, alarms and warnings, which is automatic, right? And firmware, which is something that only the site administrator can actually see. Again, it's asking us for the gateway password, the local gateway password to the admin account, because firmware updates is quite a delicate process. You can see authentication is successful, so now I have access to the firmware verification process. So Now the InsightCloud is going to run through the versions of software on the devices connected to the gateway. It's going to compare them with what it thinks is the most current ones, and it's going to tell us which of the devices needs upgrades as per Schneider Solar latest release production versions of the various software versions that they have. Okay. So again, no beta versions will apply, no test versions will apply, only production versions, right? So you will see here, right? These are the devices, you see there. So you can actually go there and you can actually select and update the software on any of the devices remotely. Again, and to be clear, if you want to do anything which will set the system to standby, you need to keep in mind that that's going to probably power down the internet and it's going to lock you out of the system. So for doing any of these remote updates, it's fundamentally important that the gateway has a backup power supply. So that power outlet is connected to the national grid if the national grid is available, and so is as well the internet to which the gateway is connected. So during this whole process, the system will switch off and will power off the power output, but you will continue to have in the local side internet and power to the gateway. So if that is provided that you have made that arrangement, you can do a remote update for the devices there. For updating the gateway is not a problem because the gateway can switch on and off without affecting the performance of the system. The system continues operating normally. So the gateway do not need that arrangement, but any other device do need that arrangement. It's just for you to keep in mind. Again, it's very unique as well on the market. It's something to keep in mind. If you have a very high-end installation, you might want to allocate for a very small online UPS to be connected to the gateway and to the internet supply in the system in such a way that during the period of updating this firmware, 10, 15 minutes, you can keep both of them powered up. And then we have an ever improving function, which is the reporting, right? So this is probably a second or third iteration of this report. So you can actually produce nice PDF reports if you will want to, right? So we can see on this system, maybe we are interested to see how it's done in November. So then we can automatically use any of the report types of templates that we have, right? So for example, consolidated report is a more complete of all the reports that the gateway can produce. As I said, this is a work in progress. The gateway is a 12-month-old product still. So a lot of the roadmaps is still under development. So what you're seeing here is just part of the process. So you can see here a very good and detailed report, device by device, okay? So you can see who consumed what, who produced what. Quite a complete report, okay? And you can export these into a more friendly format as a PDF, for example, or as a image, right? So you can make this an image, a consolidated report. You can make that into a file, and then that file can be shared by email or, or any other means, right? So here you have your report, production report. Awesome. Okay, so these are the main functions that you have within within your InsightCloud account. Here in the report manager, you can actually have a schedule, and you can say, well, from this side, I want to get a monthly report, right? And I want to make it like that, and I can create a schedule. So I'm going to be actually getting automatically produced reports for people that requires the functionality. Okay. So I think we have dived into probably all the possible functions that actually InsightCloud can do. The last one is it can run, if you actually complete these fields, it can run a very basic financial return of investment from your system, and that will appear on the report if you have completed these fields here. Okay, so again, you can change your profile, your details, your email address, like with any account on any system. This is how you actually amend that. You can log out, etc., etc. In my case, I have many systems which I am an administrator, so I can go and have a look into all that list of systems, and I can see what are the active alarms and active warnings. Okay, some of them might be concerning, some of them might not be concerning. But it's a great way to actually troubleshoot your systems, okay? Now, the final point of the presentation, I'm going to revert now to our original presentation, just to actually talk a little bit more about the last leg, which is Insight Mobile. Okay, so Insight Mobile is an app which is available on the App Store and on the Google Play App Store. Again, it's completely free for usage. It is tapping on the very same database that InsightCloud is tapping, which is the website that we were just demonstrating a few seconds ago. You cannot yet change parameters and variables on the system remotely. It is something that is on the cards for the system administrators and for the installers. Now, at the moment, you can get a very complete view of your power flow, as you can see there on the left. Some important details of each of those 4 legs on the power flow, which is your PV production, battery, loads, and grid supply. You can see a very accurate historical per day, per hour, per month of all the different sources of energy you have. You can have access to all your active and historical events, which is good. So from an information point of view, you can get most of the information you want from your system, not yet remote control though. And that will finish the program that we had for today. That is spot on 60 minutes. I would like to thank all the people actually made the time to join us today for an hour, which in these busy times is actually quite a long time. We will be hanging a copy of this webinar on our YouTube channel. We will be sending a copy of this presentation to all the registered people on the conference. We're looking forward as well to any questions or queries that you might have with regards to remote monitoring, or in general, the Schneider Solar solutions and the products. So once again, many thanks for your time, and we hope to see you soon.